Hey everybody, welcome back to Water Fast Wednesday. For 5 weeks in a row now, Michael and I have fasted all day on Wednesday and only drank water. And today, this video, I've been wanting to make this all 5 of those weeks and I've been a little bit lazy. But I wanted to tell you why we got started doing water fasting. It all started with this lecture that Michael sent me, and I'm going to link this down below. About 6 weeks ago, Michael sent me a lecture from the Galen Foundation called Fasting for Survival by Dr. Pradip Jamnadas. I really hope I'm pronouncing his name right. It's an hour and 20 minutes long, and I listened to the whole thing about 6 weeks ago, and I was so floored. Completely taken away by the information that he presents, how easy it was to understand. He makes it very clear. I actually went through and watched the whole thing a second time and took incredibly detailed notes. I almost transcribed his lecture. But what I wanted to do was, instead of doing what we've done for the past 4 weeks, where we just vlog the day, I'm sure that gets repetitive and boring. I'm just going to take video footage of our day of fasting, and then I'm going to take all the sound out of it and then voice over my notes from this lecture. And disclaimer, I want to let you know it's entirely possible I could have misunderstood something he said, mistyped it, misread it. Please go check out this actual lecture. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. I have all the links down below if you want to go watch him. My video is just a little bit shorter, and I'm just going to put a lot of pretty Florida scenery from our day in here just to kind of keep it interesting. But if you're interested in learning more about fasting, this is an awesome place to start. I cannot get over what an amazing lecture this was, even for me, who's I'm no longer working in the healthcare field, but I felt like he broke it down where, let's get him back on the screen. He broke it down where anybody could understand it. And I want to share with you what inspired us to start Water Fast Wednesdays. So let's go look at some Florida, and I'll tell you what I learned from the lecture.
Okay, so like I said, guys, these are my notes from the Fasting for Survival lecture by Dr. Jamnadas, which is found on YouTube, and I have linked everything below if you'd like to watch his lecture. His presentation is so much better than mine is, of course, but I was just so impressed by the information that he delivered that I listened to the lecture a second time and took notes. They're almost an actual transcription of what he said in the lecture. I hope you enjoy. According to Dr. Jamnadas, we are all duped into thinking that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. He even compared typical breakfast foods to dog food and said the sugar content alone in them makes them extremely much more dangerous than most people realize. The campaign to normalize eating such processed sugary foods first thing in the morning was just a money grab. He said the most important meal of the day is the one meal of the day that you actually eat, and he highly encourages you to evaluate everything that crosses your tongue. He said that every bite you take can and will have drastic effects on your body and on your hormone chain reaction. He says to question every bite you take by asking, is this food in keeping with my genetics? I don't know exactly how old I thought human beings are. I thought maybe around 200,000 years old. But Dr. Jamnadas says that humans are possibly as much as 2 million years old. We've been coding our genetic pathways for 2 million years to function in a certain way. 12,000 years ago, humans invented agriculture, and a lot of our genetics were forced to begin to change as we shifted into farming and away from the Paleolithic lifestyle. 200 years ago, we introduced vegetable seed oils, high sugar, high simple carbs, and ultimately a highly processed diet. Our genetics simply cannot keep up. In his words, the human body is made to fast and to feast. Think about this. Animals do not eat when they are sick or injured. Eating takes up a lot of energy that could be used elsewhere where it is needed more, such as to restore sick or damaged cells and wounds. It takes a lot of calories to digest food, and if the food is not providing optimum nutrition, then those calories would be better spent recovering. Dr. Jamnadas is a huge supporter of fasting. In the first 12 hours of not eating, your body will begin to wipe out all the glycogen that is stored in your liver and in your muscles in order to maintain your blood sugar. The average person will have plenty of protein and at least a month's worth of vitamins stored in their body. Your body really doesn't burn fat during this 12 hours of fasting, but your blood sugar will not drop even if you fast for days, unless you are on diabetes medications or insulin. After 12 hours of fasting, a thing called gluconeogenesis occurs. New glucose is being made. Your body can make glucose from protein, but not the protein that is currently in your muscles. Protein is always being turned over in your body, and the protein that would have been turned over is converted into glucose instead. There will be a small increase in ketosis during this time. Insulin levels will drop because there is no food coming in. When your insulin levels drop, you start pulling insulin out of stored fat. The fat stores open up, the fat gets devoured and converted into triglycerides and fatty acids. The fatty acid goes to your liver and gets converted into ketones. The ketones can then be utilized by every single cell in your body, including your brain. Weren't we all taught that the brain is completely dependent on sugar to function? It surprised me to learn that this is not true. The brain likes ketones and burns ketones more cleanly than sugar. By 24 hours of fasting, you have 10 to 15% of your entire energy running on ketones. At 36 hours, the ketones increase and continue to increase for up to 3 days. By the 5th day of fasting, you will have a lot of ketones that you could measure with a urine dipstick if you wanted to. If you were already on a low-carb diet, you would go into ketosis much more quickly than someone who eats a lot of sugar, because the person who eats the sugar will have a whole bunch more glycogen stored in his liver that he can go through first. You'll have to burn through that before you can start burning into fat. Dr. Jamnadas compared sugar and fat to your checking and saving bank accounts. The fat is like your savings account for energy that comes out to save the day if you don't eat enough sugar. Insulin is the hormone that prevents the person from being able to burn fat. Someone who is taking insulin is doomed. So long as the insulin levels are high, you simply cannot lose weight without a significant struggle. High sugar levels mean incredibly poor recovery from illness or wounds. However, fasting can bring your insulin level down. If you don't eat, you won't make insulin. When your insulin level drops, your body becomes more sensitive to what you do have to use for energy. Once you have fasted, you will start producing less insulin after you do eat. Food that you eat after a fast is metabolized completely differently than eating in a, quote, fed state. It's much more forgiving to you. You will start to produce less and less insulin after fasting, even if only for just 1 day, and you will keep burning fat. Even a fast of just 1 day will give you benefits that last for days. After 18 hours of fasting, your body will increase its metabolic rate because your epinephrine, adrenaline, and cortisol levels will go up because you are in a state of stress. You actually become more awake because your body is telling you that, like our Paleolithic ancestors, we need to get up and go out and make a kill. We didn't eat today, let's go find some food. You start to produce a hormone that goes to your brain and tells it to switch on. You need to make new brain cells in this state. Instead of going into a brain fog, you will actually have a surge of energy and attention. I know for sure this happened to me on our water fasts. It actually makes your brain better. Autophagy begins at 18 hours of fasting and gradually increases until it reaches maximum at 3 days of fasting. Autophagy takes the garbage from old intracellular cell waste and recycles it into energy. The cell stays alive, but the process takes the intracellular organelles and breaks them down, packages them into lysosome, digests that down into pieces, and exports it out of the cell. Once it is exported, the bloodstream can then use this waste for energy. You are literally recycling your own cells. You recycle old mitochondria as well. When you do begin eating again, the old, damaged, and removed cell parts are rejuvenated first. Autophagy literally makes your cells better, stronger, and younger and restored, kind of like a reset switch. The cells are now stronger, they will last longer, and are more resistant to disease. Growth hormone goes up by 2,000% in men and 1,300% in women with a 2-day fast. Growth hormone is the hormone that makes your skin better, replaces dead cells better, and keeps you looking and feeling young. I think the audience was all pretty much gung-ho and excited to start a water fast at this point in his lecture, and he made it clear you will have to prepare yourself physically, mentally, and environmentally for a 3-day fast, and you will absolutely have to have water if you are planning to fast that long. Then Dr. Jamnadas dropped this bomb. According to research, if you do a 7-day water fast, your lifetime probability of getting any form of cancer is reduced by more than 70%, and some studies that percentage is even higher. The cells that are going to die off during a fast first will be the cancer cells. People who fasted for only 36 hours and then received chemotherapy tolerated the chemo much better with fewer side effects. The cancer cells were killed off and the normal cells were much more resilient to survive the chemo. He says that fasting is the most potent thing you can do as an anti-inflammatory. It can help or heal leaky gut and all kinds of gastrointestinal diseases related to inflammation. He advises to drink plenty of water during a 3-day or longer fast. You will begin to pee more frequently as your insulin levels go down because insulin holds onto water and takes it with it. You will need to drink more water to offset this. Electrolytes will be conserved by your kidneys because the kidneys are great at holding on to electrolytes. The kidneys will not allow you to lose sodium or potassium. If you get dizzy or headaches or cramps, a pinch of salt in your water should fix this. The dizziness you might feel is related to a drop in blood pressure, not because your blood sugar is dropping. An Epsom salt bath or rubbing liquid magnesium on your skin can also help with these symptoms. Hunger will come and go according to your circadian cycle, but it will not last. He advises to drink water anytime you are hungry and do something to preoccupy your mind until the hunger passes. Most people find the second day to be the hardest, and then they start to feel good from the 3rd day on. By the 4th day, they feel great, and by the 5th day, they feel like running. That was, of course, not my experience when I attempted a 3-day fast, but I'm still hoping to work back up to that at some point. And here's another major point of advice from Dr. Jamnadas. He said if you want to be healthy, eat only 1 time a day. If you absolutely must eat twice a day, he said to keep it within a very small window of maybe 6 to 8 hours at maximum. That's what he calls time-restricted feeding. He said every snack you eat will increase your insulin level, and he advises to never snack, not even in the food window. This will give you just a little bit of autophagy and a little bit of ketosis that will burn some fat. He suggested once a week, extend your fast just a little further by skipping an evening meal, which takes the fast from 24 hours to 36 hours. Immunity will improve and stem cell production will kick in. He has some of his severely ill patients to do a 7-day fast every 6 months and then do time-restricted feeding for the 6 months in between. He is adamant that our lives revolve too much around eating, and we have been bamboozled by the media industry into thinking food and meal times are much more important than they really are. He said your body will know that you didn't eat, not from dropping blood sugar levels, but from a hormone that gets activated. I'm afraid I couldn't understand the name of this hormone, but here are the benefits of it being activated. There are many, including it activates all the antioxidant genes in your body. It activates your DNA to repair itself. It controls apoptosis, which means programmed cell death. It clears old cells that don't need to hang around. It maintains protein structure and maintenance, such as the material built up that hurt brain mechanisms, like in Alzheimer's disease, and it mobilizes stem cells. Next, he talked about fruits, and this one hurt just a little bit. I don't eat a lot of fruit, but Michael does eat some fruit and nuts. He is definitely more of an animal-based person than I am, and I eat almost strictly protein. Dr. Jamnadas says that fruit is overrated. We originally started eating fruit in the Paleolithic era because the fructose was to help us get through the winter. In today's world, we really don't have to survive a winter, and those extra fructose stores really aren't necessary. He suggests eating 1 fruit per day if you must, and choosing fruits that have a low glycemic index. Low glycemic index fruits include apples, pears, plums, apricots, and peaches. Next, he talked about omega-3, which is a critical element to starting your body's chain hormone reactions. Omega-3 and omega-6 compete for the same substrates, however, and vegetable oil is full of omega-6. Omega-3 also helps lengthen your telomeres. I didn't know what telomeres were, so I looked them up. Telomeres are the structure made from DNA sequences and proteins found at the end of chromosomes, acting like a cap on the end of a shoelace. Telomeres are required for cell division. Meditation also helps boost telomeres. Lack of sleep shortens telomeres. He also claimed melatonin can help prevent cancer and also turns on the FOXO3 gene. Again, I have no idea what that means, but I do know that FOXO3 plays an important role in human longevity. We're digressing. He circled back to the statement that whatever you eat immediately begins to change your genetic expression. It's so empowering to know that. The next topic of conversation was about protein, and I'll admit I felt a little bit called out. I understand the point he was trying to make about too much protein being a bad thing. However, I have lived a pretty strict carnivore lifestyle for over 2 years now, and although I do indulge in the very rare cheat day, I have found the carnivore lifestyle to be life-changing for me in so many ways. I simply would not look back at this point. However, if you're interested in his discussion about the dangers of too much protein in your diet, please watch this video because he does a fantastic job of explaining his position and the scientific reasons behind it. He did advise strongly against protein powder, which I'm sure is advice Michael will not take to heart. I agree with him that all protein really ought to come from red meat and fish, and definitely not from animals fed on corn if at all possible. He said next that refined sugar is every bit as processed as anything else you could buy in a grocery store. He went out into the weeds above my head a little bit here, but what I got from this part of the lecture is that a diet involving sugar will activate hormones that will turn off autophagy, cause an increase in insulin, and make you inflamed. Dr. Jamnadas highly recommended that if you don't want cancer, heart disease, diabetes, degenerative joint disease, inflammation of your bowels, etc., then his best advice to you is just to not get old, or to slow down your own aging. The best way to stay young, in his opinion, is to fast. Next, he talked about vitamin K2 and how it helps take calcium out of your tissues and put it back into the bones. I was delighted to find out that red meat is a great source of vitamin K2, so I should be doing good in this department. Next, he threw out some really neat statistics. In 2 million years of human evolution, this has created 100,000 generations of people. Only 600 of those generations were agricultural. Only 10 of those generations have existed since the Industrial Revolution, when our food really began to become ultra-processed. We radically changed our diet and eating lifestyle and expected only 10 generations to be able to keep up genetically. He said if we are lucky and we procreate wisely, perhaps in another 1,000 generations from now, our kids will be genetically adapted to this new diet. But right now we are screwed. We stand no chance. He said the first thing a person needs to do is cut back on carbohydrates. You can't jump straight into fasting without limiting carbs and processed foods leading up to the fasting attempt. No sugar, no refined foods, no drinks besides water, tea, and coffee. He totally suggests having tea or coffee with nothing added to them while on a fast if you feel you need them to help fight the hunger. He did say if you have fasted for 3 to 4 days, you might start having some problems. You may be phosphate, magnesium, or potassium deficient. Your bones are the biggest storehouse for phosphate, and after you begin eating again, your body will begin pulling phosphate out of your bones. He said you absolutely have to be careful how you go about eating again, and highly suggests you begin with bone broth. He even said you can drink the bone broth during the fast if you feel like you need to. Bone broth is full of glycine, phosphate, minerals, and magnesium. He highly suggests making your own bone broth and recommended a Dr. Jason Fung's book for recipes on good ways to make it. Dr. Jamnadas had lots of recommendations about what oral medications to take and which to stop taking during a water fast, but I do not feel comfortable sharing that information here in my video. He did spend considerable time, though, talking about that, beginning with suggesting that you talk to your doctor first about the safety of coming off certain medications to do something as extreme as a water fast. I did agree with his point that you shouldn't do this without letting your physician know first. But I also agree with him 1000% when he said that physicians are trained to treat illness and injury, and they don't really know what to do with a person who is on a trajectory to get healthy. High blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol are all part of metabolic syndrome, and fasting makes metabolic syndrome better. HDL will go up and LDL will go down. Lastly, Dr. Jamnadas said that the old mantra of calories in, calories out is outdated advice and should not be taken seriously anymore. He says what is much more important is how your body reacts to these calories and what kind and quality of calories are going in. He concluded by reiterating that what goes past your tongue will determine your future.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I shot all that video yesterday, to be completely honest, and I'm fixing to break my fast with some coffee. There was one thing about this lecture that gives us a little bit of pause. He does mention how after so many hours of fasting, your body starts to increase its production of stem cells or mobilize them better. That for me is potentially a problem right now. So I have decided not to do any more 48-hour fasts. I don't want to fast any longer than 36 hours, 24 to 36 hours at maximum. So what I'm taking away from this going forward, we are going to have to cut out entire water fasts completely for the sake of my the situation going on in my mouth. But I have cut out breakfast altogether. I am no longer eating breakfast, and I am very strictly eating food one time a day. I'm trying to do it sometime between like around 12 to 3, but I'm sitting down eating all of the food that I would eat for that day, and then as soon as I'm done eating, I go brush my teeth, and then no more food for like 23 hours and 45 minutes. That I am going to take away from this lecture for now. He did mention how that will just help boost, general health and well-being, and I'll get some autophagy out of that. But when I was doing the Water Fast Wednesdays and going sometimes almost 48 hours without food, I think maybe that's not the best idea for my situation right now, which has got me incredibly bummed out. I was really enjoying Water Fast Wednesdays. They were making me feel really good, really clean, really healthy. I am absolutely going to get back into water fasting just as soon as everything that's going on with my mouth is resolved, whenever that may be, whatever that end goal process will be. I am absolutely going to start back water fasting because I was really enjoying it, and I'm already missing it. But I'm going to start out this morning with some coffee and get on with my day. I hope you will please go check out this lecture. If you need the link, it's down below, or you could Google Fasting for Survival lecture. Dr. Pradip Jamnadas, Jamnadas. It's from the Galen Foundation. And I think it's incredible, well worth a watch. Guys, I'll see you another day in another video. Bye, everybody.